Today, I'm going to talk about chapter 10 in my book, Fun at Work, and I'm going to cover what I believe is the number one quality of a successful leader. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel for chapter 10 in my book, Fun at Work. This is about communication. The ability to communicate is what I believe is the most valuable character and trait of a successful leader. I want you to consider this concept. Your ability to communicate creates the size of your universe. And on the very first page of the book, I make this point. A hermit who lives up in the mountains and doesn't even have a dog to talk to is by himself. He can live off of nuts and berries. He can think that he's beaten the system. How big is his universe? Well, it's as big as his cabin. It's as big as the woods where he finds his nuts and berries and does his hunting. His universe is very small because your communication and your ability to communicate creates space. That's your universe. That's how I'm defining it. If you look at the President of the United States, their universe is as big as the entire planet, because I think it's pretty safe to say that in probably about 10 minutes, the President of the United States can get a hold of anybody in the world. So now if you have an executive who is sitting in their office and not communicating out to the employees, the managers, other CEOs of collaborative endeavors, then that executive is sitting there and literally their universe is no bigger than their office. So you must communicate. And I've got some great quotes here in the book that I want to go over with you briefly. So this is from Yehuda Berg, an author. Words are singularly the most powerful force available to humanity. We can choose to use this force constructively with words of encouragement or destructively using words of despair. Words have energy and power with the ability to help, to heal, to hinder, to hurt, to harm, to humiliate, and to humble. So communication then is this exchange of words that goes back and forth. I've seen leaders who think yelling is leadership. So you can run your company however you choose. Personally, as an employee, as a manager, I don't want to feel like I'm at boot camp. I don't want to feel like the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket is my boss. That's not my game. That's not why I'm there. And in my opinion, that is zero communication and that is not leadership. So I have another great quote here. This is from Brian Tracy. He's a Canadian-American motivational speaker and author. I've read several of Brian's books. He's a great author. Communication is a skill that you can learn. It's like riding a bicycle or typing. If you're willing to work at it, you can rapidly improve the quality of every part of your life. So, sometimes there's a disagreement even between a husband and a wife, or a boss and an employee, a manager, etc. And you can go up and say, how you doing? And they go, yeah, okay. All right, so immediately they're not okay. And then you can walk away and say, well, I tried. I asked how they're doing. No, you didn't try. So communication has to be asking a question and getting the question answered. So the same thing applies in sales, which I've talked about in other videos. So as an executive, it's important. If somebody's unhappy, you have to find out why. Just look, as an executive, you hired them to do their job. Do you really think they're going to do their job if they're upset? And I don't know, they may even be upset with something that's happening outside of work. Find out about that. Find out if there's something that you can do to help them. Their water heater went down and it's winter. All right, well then, hey, let me help you out with that. I know the banker, he'll give you $1,000 quick loan, or just find out what's happening. Ask questions, get the questions answered, and have this exchange of words that goes back and forth. That is communication. So first of all, your ability to communicate creates the size of the space that you control, the size of the space of your business. Secondly, ask people questions and get an answer. Now, next, collaboration is a key part of the success of any organization. Executed through a clearly defined vision and mission and based on transparency and constant communication. So I have a diagram in the book that I really, really love. So this is an owner or a manager, but you can definitely say this is leadership, as this person who's leading this group of people is in communication. I have a friend who runs a business just across the street from me, and in the fall of 2014, I went to visit him at his office. He had just started his company. It was in a very small space, and there were about 10 employees, and he's standing in the middle of the room because he likes to work standing up, and his employees are around the outside. That's the fall of 2014. All right? This is the spring of 2020, so 5.5 years ago. Today, there are 800 employees. I could be wrong. It might be over 1,000 now. That company just got a $1 billion valuation. And I've talked to people who work for him. First of all, he's a super great guy. I've talked to people that work for him. He starts every day, every morning, 9 o'clock. He is standing in front of his computer and his face is on the monitor, and he has a 10-minute briefing with everybody in the company every day. That's communication. And so you have to let the people in your organization know what is happening. Now, there's another great quote here that I want to go over. Okay, this quote is from Louis V. Gerstner Jr., former CEO of IBM, a fairly well-known company. It's about communication. It's about honesty. It's about treating people in the organization as deserving to know the facts. You don't try to give them half the story. You don't try to hide the story. You treat them as true equals, and you communicate and you communicate and communicate. So what he is saying is you need to let the people in the organization know what's going on, and there needs to be communication. So here's what I have always done. Let's go back to when I was practicing dentistry. Every Monday morning at 6:45, I met with my office manager for 1 hour, and we had communication. This is what happened last week. Here's our strategy for this week. I had the statistics in front of me, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, watch the video on results. That was a previous video here, a previous chapter. So I had a 1 hour meeting with her, and then we had a 1 hour staff meeting every Monday afternoon. She ran the meeting. She's the manager. It was her crew. So on Monday, I had 2 hours of communication. Then every morning, we had 10 minutes of communication, just like my good friend who does that now with a company of 800 to 1,000 employees. We just had a quick 10-minute meeting. Here's what's happening with the patients coming in today. Then every 8 weeks, I canceled patients from 1 until 5 on a Thursday afternoon. That cost me, I don't know how many thousands of dollars cost me. But what the purpose of that meeting was all about was we would look at the statistics for the last 8 weeks. We would look at what programs were working, what programs weren't working, and I was honest. I wasn't hiding anything. Here's the income of the company. This is the income of every person, every division, every department in the company. This is it. It's all laid out. So I was in constant communication with my staff, and by the age of 38, I was semi-retired, working about 20 hours a week, making more money than I had ever made. I ended up selling that to my associate to become a partner in another company, a dental practice management company, where there's constant communication. There are communication meetings within that organization 3 times a day. So this is about communication. Now, there's one point here from Mr. Gertner that I do want to cover, because there's a certain filter as an executive that you have to put on it. He says it's about communication, it's about honesty, it's about treating people in the organization as deserving to know the facts. You don't try to give them half the story. You don't try to hide the story. Now, that is true, I would say 99% of the time. But let's say you've just gotten a bad news letter. You got a letter from your attorney that you're being sued by a client. You have a lawsuit from a disgruntled employee, or you don't have a staff meeting about that. Go on the loudspeaker and announce to the entire organization, we're being sued and we could lose everything. No. Now, there are certain people in the organization that do need to know that, the senior executives, the attorney, but the managers don't need to know that. We're not putting bad news down into the organization. We're going to run off and we're going to handle it. We're going to figure out whatever the legal matter is. We're going to take responsibility for it. We're going to resolve it. After it's resolved, then we are going to announce to the managers and the staff what we just went through. And they're going to wonder if everything's okay, what's happening. They might notice there's a new policy or whatever. But my advice is when there's that kind of drastic news that could affect everyone in the organization, you don't share that. You don't freak everybody out. And when things go bad, the owner cannot get freaked out. You can freak out with your accountant. You can freak out with your other executives. You do not freak out in your managers and your employees. So leadership is definitely about communication. It's treating everybody as equals. It's letting them know that you're happy with their job. And if you're not happy with their job, don't say, what's up with you? You sit down and just look at them and say, are you doing okay? You look like something's bothering you. Let's talk. Is there anything I can do to help you? This is leadership, and this will create a huge organization. And if you want managers and you want employees that will walk across hot coals for you come hell or high water, then you need to communicate with them. Hey everybody, I really hope that you're enjoying this series that I'm doing, walking you through every chapter in my book. Please subscribe, Matterhorn Business Development. Click the bell so you get notifications. We're doing 3 videos a week. We're churning it out. Our subscribers are rapidly growing and expanding. Thank you for your support. We want you on board.